So, Harry, another defeat at the weekend, 1 win for 9. What is actually going wrong?
Yeah, I mean, it's ever so difficult, and I think, for sure, I think, anywhere you go, it's always going to be difficult, and I go to White Hart Lane and find that difficult, and it's all you'd have him in your side, wouldn't you? No, but I mean, it's not. I mean, it's not my fault. People are saying, formations, and see, the other day I was going to do like a 7-7-3, 4-4-5-7 formation, but it didn't work. I was going to pack the midfield. Unfortunately the ref noticed, so I had to stop that one. But it's difficult, but there is a vacancy at Barnet. Ladies and gentlemen, yes, it's that time again. You've downloaded the Spurs Show with me, Phil Cornwell, and thank you very much to the you lot for downloading us again. Welcome to the Monathon. I mean the Spurs Show. It's like the old days. We're loving it. It's back to normal. Normal service has been resumed. I was very uncomfortable with all that third place, 10 points ahead, and all that. It was really uncomfortable. Now I'm much more familiar in my misery, like you probably all are, and we love it, really, don't we? Mike Lee's here.
Hello, Phil. Nice to see you.
Good to see you, Mike.
Happy days.
Happy days are here again. And again, there's a bloke in here, another bloke who claims he played for Spurs once. None other than Mr. Garth Crooks.
Hello, Phil.
Hello, Garth.
How are you?
Welcome to the show. I'm very good. I'm really chuffed to have you on.
Yeah, same here. It's good to be here.
It's good to have proper players on, Mike.
Absolutely.
We've had cheerful.
Great players. I mean, one of the finest strikers Tottenham have seen for a long time.
Let's embarrass him.
No, but let's
48 league goals.
Left at the moment, he can't with Perryman. Here comes Crooks. It's Crooks! It's there! Garth Crooks for Spurs!
Correct.
How many in the League Cup? 9.
Oh, I don't know how many in the league. No,
Europe,
I don't
9. FA Cup, I can't tell you. But can you tell us? I bet you can't, Garth.
I haven't a clue.
No, you haven't.
No,
I knew you were going to say that.
No.
You just don't. Not bad, though. Not bad
I'm
return.
very impressed, gentlemen.
You've got to do your research.
Because
Garth.
he's sitting here. Garth scored my favourite headed goal of all time.
Oh, go on then. What was
and you'll
it?
know who it was against. What was your best headed goal?
Well, the one that people always talk about, the one against Wolverhampton Wanderers at White Hart Lane.
6-1.
Yeah.
And you're
Was
from
that-
Barry Davis. That was an absolute bullet.
Oh, I say. Yes.
That's exactly how it was.
Oh, you have to say, Barry Davis. Oh, surely. What a lovely man. What a character. No, I love Barry. I've done a lot of voiceovers with Barry.
That's
It's funny,
very good. That's very, very
Is he
good.
going to have a crack? He is, Oh, I say, because he does that. Oh! He was the greatest. I love Barry. A very knowledgeable man, very intelligent guy as well. And was that when the West Stand was not there, Garth?
That's right.
You must remember that.
No, it was the reopening. of the
How
West Stand.
off-putting was it to see the buses go down the High Road Cup?
Very, very
You must have
off-putting.
thought, I'm at
People
Aldershot.
waving to you? People waving to you?
No.
Expecting you to wave back?
I remember that. Mike, I was there. Wolves. Was that November?
Yeah, no, it was the
time,
opening of the West Stand. So Stanley Rouse.
Oh, no, but I remember
Opened
going to
it.
games when the West Ham wasn't there. It was like
Yes,
gone,
that's
they'd
right.
raised
Yeah,
it.
yes, that's right.
That must have been when Garth first got there, I'm sure.
The season
I don't
after,
know.
the second season.
Was it? They took it down, didn't
took
they?
it down.
So you actually came out of that old tunnel, up the steps.
I did.
Isn't that amazing?
And
to
I was very
think?
proud to come up that tunnel because I played against Tottenham. I think the old First Division season, you went down as the second. For Stoke, and I always wanted to play for Spurs because of the way you play football. It's the brand of football, and it was a real pleasure for me to arrive there in the summer of 1980.
Is that actually true? As a kid, you would think, or as a kid, you must have wanted to play for Stoke. As a kid,
that was my hometown.
Then,
but 67 was the first time I really took notice of Tottenham in the cup final.
Yeah, against Chelsea.
Frank Saul was playing in those days.
Jimmy Robertson, who
was
scored
playing in those
the goals. Yeah.
So, and that it was, and the white strip, and they were just a classy outfit, and they played such lovely football. And I mean, it grew on me ever since then. I then came into contact with that magnificent talent, Glenn Hoddle. We played in the England under-21s together.
You scored a hat-trick, didn't you?
Yeah, I mean, he was sensational.
Was he one of the best players you ever saw on a pitch when you were playing with and thought that guy's a bit special? You must have played with some good people, but
I played some great players.
Yeah, of course. Where does Hoddle stand?
Hudson would have been one of them. Hoddle stands probably in the players I played with alongside in my top 3.
Yes, I mean as a player. Presumably he laid the ball on for you a few times, didn't he? And then you knew when he passed.
Well, everybody who played in the same. If you were a striker, you played in the same team as Glenn.
Yeah.
And you'd worked Glenn out. You were in for a fantastic treat of goals.
If you could run onto it.
There's Glenn Hoddle. Oh, Crooks is going through here. Oh, he's outpaced them. Crooks is there. Oh, yes. Number 2 for Crooks. Number 2 for Tottenham. And a magnificent ball by Glenn Hoddle.
You just had to be, if you were an intelligent striker with Glenn Hoddle, you were going to score a hatful of goals. If you were thick, you weren't.
Yes, interesting.
Because as a Spurs fan going since the early 70s, what was such a breath of fresh air when you came and Steve Archibald, and no disrespect to the strikers beforehand, our strike force on the whole was Armstrong and Jones, also Colin Lee, who had, and Ian Moores, had their attributes but didn't really have any pace.
And they all scored goals with Glenn.
So we were starved for watching fast strikers, even before John Duncan, before that. So when you came along in Archibald, we hadn't seen speed like that
it was a great...
for such a long time, and our style of football changed because he knew he could put a ball through and you'd get on the end of it.
Yeah, it was instantaneous as well, Garth, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Pretty much you and Archie first game.
It might seem that way, but I've got to tell you, no, it wasn't, because I arrived in the summer, I had a pre-season, didn't score 1 goal, never got anywhere, and the team was dominated by the midfield. It was dominated by our DLS, Hoddle, Villa. They decided when they would give you the ball, and when they gave you the ball, they'd expect it straight back. So, you didn't have it very long. You did exactly as they told you to do. So, Steve, I remember it very, very well. One particular afternoon, we are at the old Cheshunt training ground, on the bottom pitch. One of them hasn't been waterlogged. And they were lending us the ball, as they usually do. And Steve Archibald, who could have an argument on his own in a room, was getting more and more agitated. And I was the sort of the guy that sort of the peacemaker between the midfield and Archibald. And I was getting a bit concerned. I'd just arrived, and I could see that he wasn't going very well. We weren't scoring many goals, and we weren't getting onto the ball. And we had a break. And Keith Borkin said, look, just have 5 minutes. And Steve's is in this deep Scottish accent, complaining and cursing and all sorts. I'm saying, come on now, Steve, I think we can work this out. He said, what are you on about? He said, what do you mean? I said, well, look, when the ball gets into the last third, in and around the box, let's see if we can retain the ball. Let's see the first pass that we make is not back into the midfield. Let's see if we can find one another. And if we do, and it works, it forces the midfield to come up another 10, 15 yards. Otherwise, there's no connection. And it sounded all very technical. But that's what I did. And Glenn he could feed the ball anywhere he wanted to. And he'd feed it into me, and I would pretty decent with my back to goal. And I'd probably have 2 touch if I wanted to find Steve. I'd have 1 touch if I wanted to go back into the midfield. So I'd retain the ball, have 1 touch, and I'd play the second ball square to Steve or just behind the centre half for Steve to go on to. And after about the 3rd or 4th pass, Glenn Hoddle turned to Keith Birkinshaw and said, what are they doing? and I saw Steve Archibald's face just light up. Just light up. And Keith Birkinshaw, to his eternal credit, said, leave it. Let him carry on. And what we did was, and that was the birth of the partnership, because it forced the midfield to step up and come and join the play. And as things developed, and this is absolutely true, we took control of the last third. And the deal was, in and around the box, we were in charge. Anywhere else in the field, you're in charge. And it worked.
That's great. So
it works. I think
yeah.
Was it Notts Forest 2-0 you scored on your debut? Mm-hmm. The next game, Palace.
Yes. And
then another game, the one after you scored. I think you scored the first 3 games.
Yes, I did. I think that we won against Brighton, actually, at home. Mark Lawrenson played in that game straight up before he went to Liverpool. And it was strange because right up until the start, the first league game against Nottingham Forest, I hadn't scored a goal and didn't look like scoring a goal. And I was very concerned.
How many games exactly you'd gone without scoring, Garth?
Pre-season games? About 4 or 5.
Oh, right. And then, it was that first game of the season, was it?
That was the first game against Nottingham Forest. And by the way, Peter Shilton was in goal for Forest.
Yes,
it doesn't make it easy.
Doesn't make it easy, does it?
No. Did you feel the pressure? You'd come to Tottenham. Like you said, when they contacted you, when they contacted your club, Stoke City, were you like, wow, Spurs are up there? Or, what did you feel about that? Because you said you admired them.
Yes, I did.
Were you like, yes, I'm going to Tottenham?
Absolutely.
What other clubs in the field? Was it just Tottenham?
There were a couple of popular clubs.
United.
Everton, Birmingham City at the time. There was a Birmingham, definitely. I'm just trying to think.
Because you were scoring a hatful at Stoke. You'd attracted attention,
obviously. And we were talking about, it was a record club fee at the time. I mean, it's a long time ago. At the time, £700,000 doesn't sound a lot of money, but then it was a record fee for Stoke.
Well, it's nearly $1 million.
Yes, indeed.
In those days.
And when I got to Spurs, it was a whole new world. But you're right. When we got the call, I remember the late secretary, Mike Potts, who was a wonderful man, being very, very, almost surly on the phone with me, because normally he'd been very, very nice with me, but now he was selling me.
Hello, what's going on?
And he said, we've accepted this offer from Tottenham, and you're to pop in, get your boots, get all your stuff. You can go and talk.
Get your boots.
And you can go down on Monday. And I put the phone in and I went, yes.
Really? Great, God. And and you said you just quickly mentioned Alan Hudson. Sorry, and I went over you there, but you mentioned Alan Hudson. You played with Alan Hudson. He was a bit of a legend, wasn't he?
He was a magical footballer.
Yeah.
On a football pitch. I mean, again,
a visionary.
He could see things. Yeah. 2 moves
that
before
was at
they
the
happened.
End, wasn't it, Garth? Of his.
No. He then went to Arsenal after he left Stoke, and then he went to, I think, a very, very brief spell back at Chelsea before he went back to Stoke again. So, I mean, Alan was a tortured soul.
I know he was.
He was a magnificent player.
A lot of demons.
The ball at his feet, you couldn't get the ball off him. He was a bit like Gascoigne in that respect. You couldn't get the ball off him, and he'd almost release it at will. And his link-up play with Jimmy Greenough, the great Jimmy Greenough, who played for Stoke and Manchester United at the time, was fantastic. And I learned a lot from Alan in terms of being able to move away from the ball.
Did you? You learned a lot, you think? Yeah.
And a lot from Jimmy Greenough to play with my back to goal.
How great to be with a young lad like yourself, just in with those guys. You must have been like, whoa.
That's where I learnt my trade. Yeah. That's exactly where, Jimmy Robertson had joined the Stoke City by that time. Great winger. And watching his movement. Did you used to get
treatment, guy? I mean, how tough was it, mate, as a kid, playing for... Did you just get kicked up in the air a lot? Did they target you? Well, of course they would, I suppose. How was that for you?
You're absolutely right. As a young kid playing in that very competitive environment, you had to learn how to survive like anybody else in a working environment. You're absolutely right. And you worked it out. So it wasn't difficult because I was quicker than most, and I wasn't a bad player. So when I got into the first team as a young kid, I had a lot to learn, but I enjoyed playing with the senior pros. It was a great thrill for me.
Did you find everything happened more quickly, though, once you got to that level? Did things happen more quickly? Did you have less time to think? Because that's what I'm amazed about, the intelligence of footballers, actually. Not their academic intelligence, necessarily, but just their intelligence as players. How little time you have to make the decision as to what you're going to do with the ball.
Absolutely. Yeah. And when you haven't got the ball, I remember I was playing for Stoke and I hadn't played more than 2 or 3 games, very nervous. Suddenly, you remember yourself standing on the terracing, watching your team. Suddenly you're in the team looking up at your mates. It's a very strange situation for that to happen. Yeah, it is pressure.
See what you can do.
Yeah, but because you're so confident and you know what you're doing on the football field, it's not that pressurised to you. It might be to your mates, but not to you because they're feeling it for you. But I distinctly remember playing one game. And John Mahoney, who played for Wales and Stoke, great midfield player, I was struggling. The game was 20 minutes old, and I was struggling with my lungs. It was very, very intense. It was a hot day, and the pace, I was feeling the pace. I hadn't played more than 3 or 4 first-team games, and a lot of people don't realise the difference in intensity from a reserve team to a first-team match. And the ball went out for a throw-in, and John Mahoney just said, "Now, get your breather in. Get your breather in now." And it was just so simple that when the ball goes dead, you relax, you get your breath back in when the ball comes back in play or where you're going. So you start to work out these little tricks when you can actually take a breather, when you can't. You get back in position. immediately after a situation happens, don't do it. Don't wait, and then you're struggling to get in position. Do that first,
but you
and
learn that.
And have your breather.
You learn that.
The senior pros are helping you to come to terms with that, and those are the things that they can. It's the only things they can do, really, because you're very much on your own.
Learn on the job. You've got to learn. Yeah, I mean, did you feel truly alive when you were playing kind of that? That obviously you must have loved. I mean, when you stop playing, I don't know how that is. It's different for different people, but when you're playing, the intensity of it, the crowd, all of it must be just magnificent, mate, mustn't it? Just that we'd all love to do it, Garth, and you know that, mate. Yeah, we'd all love to bang it in at Wembley, and then all that. And people always ask. I know you did. And people probably always ask you, what does it feel like, and all that. And it probably happens so quickly.
Hold little chip in there. Can Archibald get in there? Crooks!
You were quite excited actually when you scored. I remember that. I loved that goal. Do you remember that goal?
It was my dream.
City against City, of course.
It's every boyhood's dream is to score at Wembley. So when it happens, you're living it.
When that ball goes in the net, you must have exploded.
I still watch replays and think it's going to go wide. It was such an important goal.
It was.
Well,
We were out. It was 10 minutes to go. We were struggling even that replay.
Did you sort of nip it off Archibald or something?
That's what he says.
Yes.
That's his story.
But you did a good job of it. And that game, jeez, man. Yeah.
It was a great game.
It was a great game. It must have been great to be part of, obviously. And everyone remembers the goal, of course. And we've had Ricky in here, of course. He was an absolutely lovely guy. And just to ask you just briefly about Keith Birkinshaw, I just wondered how great, excuse my naivety, how great a tactician was Keith Birkinshaw?
He wasn't a great tactician.
No, so what was his thing?
His thing was he knew a good football when he saw one, and he knew the jigsaws of the puzzle, but he knew how to assemble them. Lots of people get all the jigsaws and then struggle to put the jigsaw together. He put the jigsaw together.
Yeah, he did, didn't he?
There it is. Go and play. All the pieces, I've now assembled them. Go and play. Who would have played Tony Galvin in that side other than Keith Birkinshaw, who was the antithesis of so much that we were about, but yet so important.
So important. Yeah, I know. What a team that sort of came together. This is what happens now. Coming to modern day Tottenham.
Well, it's interesting you say that because a lot on this season. We've had so many guests on this season during the good times this season, and pretty much everyone who's sat here. Some people have said the current Spurs. This is going back a few weeks, obviously. Some people have said the current Spurs team. Some people have gone as back as it's the best team since the early 60s. Most have said, including myself, it's the best team since the 1981 team because the 1981 team won things. Would you agree with that?
That's the only distinction between the. I've sat and I've watched this to current team, and I would argue that probably Glenn and Ozzy would get in that team. Steve Archibald would get in that team. Ricky Villa would get in that team.
You'd probably get in it.
I'm not sure. I think I'm a big fan of Adebayor. I'm a big fan of Adebayor. He perhaps doesn't score as many goals as I did for games, but I think what he gives the team is a huge dynamic. And I was going to talk about Gareth Bale later on, but he said the dynamic that he gives Tottenham is huge, and it's something they desperately needed.
But we won't be able to hang on to, obviously.
I mean, again, talking about that, so bringing it forward, because we've had 200 emails coming this week, much along the same lines. Fans now are not happy with what's going on. It's 1 win in 9. No one saw it happening. No one could predict what's happened.
What has happened, basically. It's a combination, Garth, I'm sure. But come on, what do you think?
Isn't it ironic? Today I'm coming in to do this podcast with you guys. Now I'm also interviewing Gareth Bale for Football Focus this Saturday. So if you're in the UK and you're watching, if you've got an hour spare, tune into Football Focus on Saturday because he gives a very, very candid interview. Because that's the first question I asked him. What's going on? What is happening? Yeah. And he gave a typical football answer. Well, it's we're having it very difficult at the moment. I know that. And we've lost a bit of concentration. He said, "Yes, I know that as well." The core question was what's happening in the dressing room. Or the very fact that Harry's been linked with England. To what extent did that disrupt the dressing room?
Thank you. I think that's
and he was very honest and without being explicit, he did say that the players in the dressing room, it was a buzz around the dressing room for 2 days. Now, my interpretation of that is Harry with us or is he not? Is his heart still in it? Because if his heart is not in it, well, what's that say? And in my experience of players in dressing rooms, it's a fragile environment, and if there is the slightest crack in any of the parts, then the equilibrium is all over the place.
And it becomes a bigger crack.
It does,
I guess.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And Sir Alex Ferguson said in a press conference that when he mentioned he was going to retire, it affected the dressing room.
Yes, actually.
So, I'm in no doubt. It's my conspiracy theory hit this, is that England, the poison chalice has been at it again. It's upset the balance in that Spurs dressing room, because up until that, it was flying.
Absolutely
even when he was
fine.
going through his court case, there wasn't an issue.
No.
And then suddenly, it's almost unexplainable.
I've never seen a collapse like, boy, and I've seen some collapses following Spurs over these. I've never seen a collapse like it with players that we know are good players, are great players, and. Okay, we before we go on to other stuff, and we've got loads of questions about Garth and his career. We've got so many people want to talk about stuff. Firstly, I think it's important to the majority of the emails we get at the moment are obviously very anti what's going on, very anti Harry. But Alex Lally's written in, he's disgusted by the negativity on this podcast over the last few weeks. I thought the return of Phil to the podcast might change things, but no, the presence of Mike has caused Phil to act as he's suicidal as well. I suggest change the Spurs Show stuff, get rid of Mike. I'd gladly go if someone else would do this.
Oh, he doesn't want to get rid of me, though.
Anyway, he likes you. But he's sort of saying we've got to be positive. We need to get behind the players. They need to know the positivities there. Well, I don't think many of the current players, Alex, listen to this show. I don't think we're actually affecting what's going on the pitch. But we are only mirroring what people are writing in about the majority of people.
Yeah.
But thanks. But thanks,
mate.
But this show is a broad church, and we will take all kind of views.
I mean, the one thing I've always noticed over the years with Spurs fans is that there's no middle ground. We're either hysterical and it's fantastic, it's the best football we've ever seen, isn't it? Wonderful. Or we're depressed, we're suicidal. It's all going to come to an end. And it's the reason is because when we are playing well and we're winning games and the football is glorious, and these last 12 months it has been glorious. In the Champions League, it was glorious. We took Newcastle apart.
Yeah, that was the last
apart. Probably the best
team
performance of the season.
It was a great game, that.
So it builds us up. It raises our hopes to such a situation, and then suddenly, when it all falls apart, we don't know what to do.
Absolutely.
So it's not our fault. It's not our fault,
wasn't it? Look, I've got a question for Garth here from David Harris in Hong Kong. That's how how much of a broad church this show is. Anyway, he said, I'm a regular podcast listener in Hong Kong Island. I have two questions for Garth. One, how good did it feel latching on to the Lord Our Hod's majestic through ball, slotting it past Paul Bradshaw and running into the ecstatic Spurs throng, congregated in the North Bank for our second?
Magical.
You know the game, obviously, against Wolves.
Magical.
Yeah,
I was always... my only failing in life, well, not only failing, but one of my failings in life was I did play to the crowd. It perhaps doesn't surprise you guys, but I did occasionally play to the crowd. I mean, I just loved
love it.
that thing that you have with your fans. I distinctly remember it at Hillsborough in the semi-final. They were there in their thousands, and you went out before the game, and there's this connect, and it's a magical connect. The fans often tell you, that they feel it because they really will go to all sorts of lengths for their team. Occasionally, the players feel it too. Really feel it too, and certainly in that semi-final. I mean, scoring. I think it was the first goal.
In the replay?
In the replay at Highbury, and we're better. If you're going to win a semi-final match, we're better to do it. Was just great.
Yeah. Because it was 3-0, wasn't it?
3-0.
That was the replay, yeah. When you bang the ball in the net, for example, was a lot of your goals instinctive, or were you sort of that split second thinking about where you're going to put it?
Generally instinctive. The only time I ever really thought about my game is when I was trying to work out the position to take up, where I thought the ball was going to drop, where Glenn was so capable of hitting any part of the position, any part of the field at any given moment. He was the only player I've ever played with who could ever do that. And I distinctly remember playing against Coventry City at home, and it was a game. I mean, it was Danny Thomas eventually came and played for us, but at this time he was playing for Coventry. And I remember standing the furthest part of the field deliberately to see whether Glenn could hit the ball. Because we had so much of the ball. We won the game pretty easily. But I got to a stage where I was almost becoming bored because, and I'm watching Glenn play, and I'm thinking, let me go and stand over here and see if he'll see me. He doesn't only just see me, he swivels and hits this 40-yard board.
And did you have to adjust yourself at all, really?
Well, not really, because
to control it.
Well, in those days, we used to play with the Minerva ball. Do you remember the
Minerva ball?
And the ball didn't spin. You just saw Minerva coming to you from 40 yards, and just boom, and there it was. He hit the ball so true.
Yes.
So true.
Yeah.
He was, and there's lots and lots of stories of Glenn that did remarkable things in training. When the pressure was off, he'd try things. You talked about the semi-final. He tried a free kick, and we played Wolves on the Saturday at Hillsborough. On the Thursday, we're having our final training session at Cheshunt, and he's trying free kicks, and we all set up, and he's putting them all over the place. And he tries a particular free kick where he looks in one corner, puts it in the other. So we watch him, and we go where we think he's going to put the ball, and he puts it in the opposite corner. And people who've got a very good memory will remember at Hillsborough, when he scores the free kick on the edge of the box, we, the players, get extremely excited because we know what he's capable of and what he's done. And we thought, he hasn't got the bottle to do that here. And of course, he sends Bradshaw the wrong way. It's exactly the same. And you watch him, if you watch any of Glenn Hoddle's games, he has a routine when he has a free kick. He'll place the ball down, and he might even turn the ball 180 degrees one way or the other. He's just going through a routine.
Like a ritual.
He'll tap his toe on the turf, step back. So he's going through that ritual as you talk about.
Johnny Wilkinson, like.
Oh, absolutely. And we're all waiting to see if and of course, he buries it.
Ironically, that game, he was the one who gave away the penalty right at the end when Kenny Hibbett died. And
he didn't give it away. He died.
Clive Thomas gave the penalty. Going back to present day, Rob Nathan's written. Hi, Rob. Good old friend of mine. Nice to hear from you. I had the misfortune of attending the game on Saturday at QPR. Was there in executive box. I was there 2 hours before kickoff for the first time in years, nice and early. And I sat and watched the players do their pre-match drills. What was completely obvious from the warm-up that was the difference in attitudes between the QPR and the Spurs players. Seeing it was a massive game for both, you would have forgotten for thinking that Spurs would have been more intense. But it was QPR went through a rigorous warm-up, high-tempo keep ball sessions, rotating shooting practice. Unfortunately, Spurs was more laborious routine of chatting and they occasionally stretched the leg while leaning on a colleague's shoulder. By the time the players came off the pitch, it looked like QPR had already played 20 minutes and were raring to get the game started. We looked a world away. This reminded me of the Spurs of old, the Spurs who went out knowing that trips to places like QPR, Southampton, Derby would yield us 0-0 at best, the David Howells days of mediocrity. The problem to me is not fatigue, not a lack of tactical know-how, but an inherent attitude within the camp that summer is soon, so let's get these few games out of the way. We're psychologically shattered, and the end of the season seems a thing on a lot of the players' mind. It's thoroughly depressing, and I know how you guys will draw any comfort from this one. I look forward to 35 minutes in misery driving home tomorrow.
Well, is it the old on the beach thing again? Is it that
it
old
shouldn't be. I mean, we could get to the Champions League. I mean, it's not like a mid-table team.
There is a letter of desperate frustration.
I know.
The poor fellow's going through. I mean, I take the view, and I hated it. You're when you're going for silverware honours, then it's the motivation is self-evident. When you have had a long season and you feel as though you need to be on the edge, but you don't want to be on the edge, and the manager's got to get you on the edge, but he hasn't got to lose you. It's a tricky balancing act. Now, yes. I've not been a manager, but the more I interview managers and the more I hear their difficulty, particularly with the modern player, it's very, very tricky. So I feel for Harry in that respect. I'm with you. If players don't realise that the Champions League is worth, everything, then we have a real problem. And Bale, what was the biggest worry for me today, interviewing Gareth Bale, when I asked him about, if we don't qualify for the Champions League, Gareth, will you revise your position at Tottenham Hotspur?
To which he said...
And he said, we'll see.
Which means yes, he will.
But
there you
it's
go,
the players that are meant to be getting us there. And again, going back to the QPR game, what I found so upsetting and disturbing was the attitude of the players throughout the game. The only time I saw any passion when Van der Vaart missed a great chance and started thumping the ground like it meant something to him. Otherwise, I was very disappointed. Daniel Wilson's
we're not scoring enough goals, clearly, are we?
Daniel Wilson is one of, unfortunately, many people who've written this week saying Harry has to go. He cites the England job. He cites his bad tactics, and we've all talked about the 4-4-2 and the mistakes. He also cites the transfers, the players that we let go in the January transfer window. Chorluka, Pavlyuchenko, Stephen Pienaar had a great game for Everton. These are all things he blames. Well, I think, things he blames on Harry, and he thinks he should go now. We should get it sorted now while these games are going on. And I have to add, I have heard very strong rumours today. There are plans afoot to maybe change things round. Because there is, as Garth has already touched on, there is a big rift at the club at the moment for what is going on. Which I'm sorry to say, where we were, 1 win in 9 is relegation.
And Dave Bassett has been spotted going into the West End. Yeah, I want to. Anyway, Garth, there's another question I feel I should ask you. This from Steve Poole, who's actually emailed in this question, and it's quite a funny one actually. Just said I was recently watching the 1981 FA Cup final replay against Man City. As you do, for both of Ricky Villa's goals. I noticed that you took air shots as you watched him get into... Oh, Garth's identifying with this. As you watched him get into scoring range and address the ball. Do you still take air shots when you watch football on TV at home?
Absolutely. I think so. I mean, the only thing I have in common...
He says you're a legend, by the way.
That's very kind of you, sir. The only thing I have in common with Sir Alex Ferguson is that we head every ball, we kick every ball, and it's terrible. I had a terrible experience.
It's like a Tourette's thing almost.
Yeah, it is.
Come on.
Yeah, exactly, all of that. I had a terrible experience the day. I went to see QPR versus Swansea. That wasn't terrible because QPR won it and they played very well. But I'm sat in the director's box. Now, if you want to be emotional, expressive, do not
sit in the not a good look, Garth.
They didn't. Not only did not say a word, they didn't even fidget. Didn't move.
What are you doing? Shifting about?
Oh, I wanted to get up and curse and point your finger and tell it, and no one moved. Said nothing. It was horrible. I couldn't wait to get out of the place.
Yeah. Right, what else you got here, Mike? There's another one here just before...
let's do these two last ones on the whole Harry thing, then we'll talk about happier times.
We've got 5 minutes left here. Neil Oakes has emailed us. He said, hi guys, the show's getting better all the time as the moaning increases. I agree. I think you can't beat a good moan-a-thon, because we sat here for weeks going, aren't we playing well? Yeah, we're great, aren't we?
I think we've been very measured this evening.
I think we have been very measured. A few things you might want to add into the debate about the quality of Harry as manager. 1, he was stating with 6 games to go we needed to win all our games. Then we lost, so we needed to maximum points from 5 games. Now after the QPR debacle, it's we must win the remaining 4. 2, Harry has been saying in interviews all season that the next game is going to be tough, no matter who the opposition is. He is doing it again about Blackburn at the Lane. Harry, we are trying to be a top 4 team. Blackburn are in the relegation zone. This should not be a tough game. It should be a banker. Well, I don't agree with that necessarily, but 3, nearly all our competitors for top 4 finish strengthened their squad in January. We got cover for Ledley 33 and with a Blackburn reject 35. 4, Pienaar has had a new lease of life back at Everton under one of the managers who is possible replacement for Harry. 5, the only Spurs manager, one of the only ones in living history to go as long without a win was Juan de Ramos. Yeah. That's from Neil Oakes.
Read the next one out quickly. Read the next one out, Phil, because it's also linked to some other points.
Which one? This one, the hoops one, yeah? That one.
It's about Harry,
yeah, okay, here we go. This is from Daniel Wilson. He says, where to begin this time? The lack of rotation or use of our squad. The fact that we have 3 quality young centre-backs out on loan while Friedel, Gallas and King have a combined age of well over 100. The fact that Van der Vaart is still taking corners. There are too many practical and obvious criticisms. Now, let's begin with 3 comments which sum up why it's falling apart in a particularly ugly way. 1, I can't sit here and fault the performance performance. We pummeled them.
This is how he in various
I can't sit here and fault the performance. We pummeled them. We could fault the performance. No, we didn't pummel them. We gently tickled them. We haven't created decent chances for the last 10 games. This is more worrying than defensive problems or anything else. Equals denial. 2, I felt we were too small up front today. Equals publicly insult our top scorer when he had no service whatsoever due to your formation and other players, example Van der Vaart, going missing or being exhausted. 3, no disrespect to the bench, but that's all we had today.
That's what you said.
Yeah, public disrespect and undermine the confidence of our squad players. Why haven't you rotated our squad or made sure we had cover for key positions? Poor tactics, poor signings, poor subs, poor management, poor excuses.
Because always talked about we had one of the best squads.
Thanks, Dan.
In the top 5, top 6, which sadly now when we've needed them hasn't really tallied true, has it?
I've always believed that if you win matches, they can cover a multitude of sins, and if you don't, all those sins come to the surface.
Of course they do, mate.
So I understand. I take all the criticisms on board. I take all the suggestions, but the fact of the matter is there are 4 team games left to play, 3 of which reside in the bottom 6 of the table. If we are serious about getting a Champions League place, you've got to bomb those. Now, I'll even accept a point against Fulham, because you can't tell me that Martin Jol is going to come back to White Hart Lane and not do everything he can possibly do to make sure that we don't get a Champions League spot. That's life, I understand that. But we should be getting 10 points from those 4 remaining games.
Yes.
That gets you in the Champions League.
You think so? You think Newcastle will lose either Chelsea or one of their games?
Newcastle might lose.
They've got Man City at home final game of the season. That's the cup final of monumental proportions.
If City can
they've got Chelsea. I expect Newcastle to pick up 4 more points. That's it. That's them done. So I think that Spurs, the points are on the board. Spurs can still do this.
I can't see us winning a game, Garth.
That's the problem, Garth. I agree with you, Mike.
I can't look at QPR. We should have murdered QPR. We gave away a poor goal. Again, the mistakes at the back.
Body language.
We're at our best when we're at our worst. Suddenly they can. They can click it on. They can happen, and all is forgotten. You know that. You've been watching them too long.
I hope you are. Let's just go through bits of business. Don't forget you subscribe at spurshow.net. Really helps us out. £1.50 a month. Just click the small subscribe button in the bottom of the page and set it up. That really helps. Spurs Show Live has moved to... We've had to move venue. 100 Club double booked us. It's still Monday, May the 28th, but it's now the Bethnal Green Working Men's Club.
How about that, Garth?
Generally
it's good, isn't it? Big Chip's coming. Big Chip. It's good enough for Big Chip, Garth. Come on.
The crooner,
Graham Roberts, who you play with. Graham Roberts is our special guest. All the links at spurshow.net. Next week is our guest Paul Hawksby from Talk Sport.
Oh, lovely. Always good value.
I've got another question here for Garth. Quite an interesting question.
Hello, Paul, if you're listening, mate.
From Matt Davis. Garth, I'm a Jewish player that plays semi-pro football and still gets quite a lot of racist abuse. But I feel at the top level, this is totally clamped out now, and players and fans are much more vigilant towards this. Do you think that England is now completely rid of racist abuse of black players, particularly after what's happened with Suarez and John Terry? I'm assuming in your day you received a hell of a lot worse than Evan Ferdinand got.
Yeah.
Massive question now, Garth.
Yeah, it is. The last point I think is I would agree with. We get a lot of that. Things have changed dramatically over the last 20 years. I'm a trustee at the Professional Football Association. I'm also a trustee at Kick It Out. And I cannot begin to tell you the changes in the game, both as fans and as players. Now, we've had 2 very, very high-profile, rather unfortunate situations, but that doesn't mean the game is rotten or that we've gone back 20 years. We haven't, because the response from within the game and outside the game has really been right at the very top, and they've attacked it. Now, that's not to say it's been totally eradicated. I'd be very foolish to try and suggest that. But what we are doing is, first of all, we're keeping pace with any changes. We're making sure that we keep it, we keep a lid right on top of it, both as in the ground and on the field. And the response from the players in relationship to what's happened has been immense. Now, I can tell you, it's not been very it's not been very public, but I can tell you that the PFA and its members are absolutely adamant that they will not have any racism within their ranks whatsoever. Now, they have allowed the situation regarding John Terry to take its due process. Whatever happens, happens. If he's acquitted, He walks. If he doesn't, he'll have to take his punishment.
Yeah, fair enough, isn't it? Yeah.
No,
good answer, Garth. Absolutely. That's great, mate. One
thing I forgot, Phil, I'm really sorry. Going back to Spurs Show subscribers, if you subscribe, the subscribers, there was a competition to win a Gareth Bale signed shirt. I've emailed the winner. I don't have it in front of me. But we're also offering 2 free tickets to Spurs Show Live to Spurs Show subscribers. They were asked because Graham Roberts was our special guest, in 1986, which Arsenal player did he dump into the hoardings at Highbury famously? You probably played in that game, actually. 86. You might be at United then. I don't know. When did you go United?
When did you go, man?
I went to
85, wasn't it?
84, 85. But I came back straight after that for another season.
He famously dumped a well-known Arsenal striker into the hoardings.
Charlie Nicholas.
Correct. That was the answer. And the winner, Peter Curtis of Epsom. Peter, you've won 2 free tickets to Spurs Show Live on Monday, May 28th.
And Garth, when you went up to Old Trafford, was Ron Atkinson there?
He was.
I was trying to work out who the manager was. You had a short spell there, didn't you, mate?
It was extraordinary. I had a period there, and it was an incredible period. Over the Christmas period, I didn't play many games because Spurs weren't sure whether or not they were going to let me go, and I was going to actually sign and for how much. So I didn't play any UEFA European games. I didn't play any. I wasn't cup tied by United. It was just purely league games, and I was only there to cover that Whiteside and Hughes, the prodigious talent that is Mark Hughes, wasn't quite ready. I mean, when he burst on the scene, he was a magnificent player. But I remember going to Ipswich and for Man United, and we beat them 2-0. I mean, Butcher and Osman played.
Good Ipswich side.
Brazil played. They were a very, very good Ipswich side. And Manchester United, I think this is in the Christmas of '84, we went top of the table and Spurs were third. So I'm this lone player from Tottenham Hotspur playing for Manchester United. I scored the second goal. I put United on top of the table, and my colleagues and my club are third.
That wouldn't happen now, Garth. It's not allowed.
It was extraordinary.
Well, Adebayor.
It was very, very strange.
True.
Adebayor's a very good example, actually.
Actually, you're right. It would happen now, and it has happened now. So there you go. I love being wrong. All right.
We better wrap this up, Phil.
We better wrap this up. It's been a great show.
Fantastic.
And mayhap Garth Crooks OBE, I should say.
Oh, yes. And well, there you go.
He insisted on being addressed like that when he came in the door.
That's a lie! It's a lie!
No, it is a lie. You know that somehow, don't you? I have made that up. We hope maybe Garth might come on the show again.
Absolutely. I insist upon it.
There's a lot more to say.
No, I insist upon it. It's been great fun
to have you on, mate, and nice one. And Mike, definitely out.
This is a Playback Media production. Get all the associated links for this podcast at spursshow.net.